Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 1 finale of Gyeongseong Creature. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Okay, so first and foremost, we're immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode. We have Jang gathering up he's kind of going on a suicide mission. He kind of already expected this to be one because he went in this with the intentions of getting Jungwon and Cheok out of this situation, but he would be the one to bring it all down because at the end of the day, as long as she's okay, that's all he cares about. So he was going into that, and that's why he was even telling Mr. Wall, like, if I don't make it, make sure you sell the golden treasure and everything, I guess just to make sure everyone's okay, and I guess just kind of make sure like everyone that we're associated with, everyone that's been a part of our whole operation is taken care of. So because BMO is the one that told her like they were reluctant to trust him at first, but Gap Young's like, everything you're trying to say to him right now, I've already said to him, but he wants to make it up to Jang of like, right, this is what happened, and I know where, because he saw her being taken by Lady Maeda, so it's like, right, you can narrow it down where she would be, because he saw her with Lady Maeda, but I don't know if he saw her actually get taken to the hospital, but maybe it's just Jane putting one and one together. It's like, well, what did she do to deal with Myungja? Like, oh, send her to that hospital. So when it's all said and done, he went in with that mission statement in mind. Him and June Taek meet up one last time too, and it's like, right, when this is all said and done, let's meet up at the Moonlight Bar. But I think there is a part of him that wasn't expecting to come back. This was going to be a one-way trip in a lot of ways. He figured it would be. And at the same time, we pick up where the last episode also left off with Cheok and Kato. We get more of that conversation between them before her mom came busting through. But the fact is that she's like, why? Because he's wondering, why does she still have such pride in her eyes? Like, because he looks so down on him, and it's like, why do you still like have that fight in you? She's like, my question is, why do you have such pride over what you do? Like, you have done such terrible things to you violated my mother, you've killed so many innocent people, so how can you just stand there so shameless? And he's like, because basically the recognition and accomplishments, his achievements will be recognized. And she's like, achievements? She couldn't help but laugh, because it's like, you think all the disgusting things you do will be regarded. It's like, it's easy for you to like lie and justify it to yourself that everything you've done, like, it's you can justify it to yourself, but it doesn't erase the terrible human being that you are, the terrible things you've done. And you can tell it got to him because he slapped her, and for her it's like, that's all the acknowledgement I need. You want to pride yourself like you're some great hero or something, but you're a garbage piece of shit human being, who treats human life like it's nothing. And then Cheok's mom ends up busting free and starts attacking everyone, but because Kato has her as hostage, like, the mom doesn't fight back she stops fighting, but the moment they leave the room, she starts ripping everyone to pieces. So he's trying to like sedate her, but it's like, this is what you wanted, right? And that's why I love that. Like, for so long, Bastard's been walking around smug and so in control, and now it's all biting him in the ass. Like, he for the first time in the entire show, we've seen him panic. Like, the fact is, later on, he ends up going to get his serums and the Najin that he has left, and he's planning to leave, but lo and behold, who does he walk past as he's escaping? Myungji. And I was like, oh, please. I was like, no. I was like, I know what you're going to do. Like, you're going to do one of two things. And he did one of the two things. My theories was like, either he's going to give her I mean, so much is happening right now. I was like, does he really have enough time to try and give her that anthrax serum? Or is he going to cut the baby out? Because the baby's most likely got the Najin. And so I was like, how's this all going to... I was like, I could see you being the monster that you are, specifically doing the second one, because the first one, there's not enough time. To be fair, a whole bunch of the bottles broke, so he might not have had any of that serum on him anymore. Because I think the only thing he had left was the Najin. I think all the other like anthrax serums broke when the case fell out of his hand, so he probably couldn't... Option 1 wasn't even available, even if he wanted to. So only available option was option 2, but... Because I knew the bastard wasn't dead when everything was going down in the building, because it's like, he's too much of a villain for you to kill him off screen. He has to die on screen. So it's like, if not, he escaped. He got out. And I was like, oh, God, that's the... Because he's the one person you like, out of anybody in this show, you were like, he needs to get it. He needs to get it so bad. Like, the fact of the matter is that it specifically needs to either be Cheok or her mom that ends up doing it. But sadly, it wasn't the case. So we'll circle back to that later on. But continuing with everything, Jang caused a distraction by blowing up, starting like exploding some dynamite like at the front gate of the hospital. Took out a few guards, was able to sneak in. He knows his way in enough to find his way in, and while going through the ventilation shafts, he ends up running into Jungwon. And now it's a conversation. Now he's finding out, like, oh, Cheok's here. Like, what are we going to do? And it's like, right, let's go get your daughter. In fact, Jang gave him, like, what's necessary. Like, I want you, when this is all said and done, I'll handle this. You need to take your daughter and leave, because obviously she's wanted for Ichiro's murder, so she can't stay here. And he wanted to give her a new life and a new chance. And, you know, it's like, right, put this all behind her and kind of start over with her dad. But for him, it's like, no. Once again, he feels this responsibility for his wife of like, I need to be the one to end this. And also he says a specific line of, I live in the past. At least with you two could have a future together. Because in his mind, I think, he's the one that, I think in his mind, it's like, I'm the reason why Cheok can't let the past go. Like, the fact is, we've spent, ever since his wife disappeared, time for him stopped. And it wasn't just for him. I mean, in a sense, it stopped for Cheok, but because it stopped for him, he also kind of stopped it for his daughter. And all he wanted was his daughter to kind of have a life. That's why he left. He was like, I'm going to handle this thing with your mom. Go live your life. But she couldn't. She couldn't let go. She refused to let go. And I think a lot of that he blames on himself in this moment. So that's why, right, she has an opportunity. He'd already wanted her to have this opportunity, but wants so even more, because it's just like, I'm continuing to drag my daughter down. I'm stuck in the past. Doesn't mean she has to be as well. So he's like, let me handle this. Because Jang was like, no, this is my responsibility. I've never been someone to put my responsibilities off on another person. But for him, it's like, this is mine. He's like, just protect my daughter and make sure she's okay. So Jang eventually meets up with her, helps her. Together, they end up killing all the guards that are surrounded her. And then Jungwon ends up drawing his wife closer to him, singing a song, holding up, like, using his necklace to kind of like reach her somewhere deep inside. And he's just like, right, honey, it's time for us to end. And in that moment, she's looking at him, and I was kind of hoping something. At least it didn't go the way it easily could have. The way it could have easily gone is, in that moment, she stabs him. He's going to die regardless, but it at least, I'm saying pain, at least painful, but I thought like it'd be a thing of she stabs him and he's there like with his last breath, like dying that way, and then the explosion happens. But no, they just stand across for each other, because in that moment they do connect. Like, she heard his song, like she is still somewhere deep inside, and she ended up they both get consumed by the fire, and Jang has to explain everything to Cheok about her dad. It's like, he made me promise to take care of you. He wanted to be with your mom, and for her it's just, in that one fell swoop, she already lost her mom. I figured her dad wasn't going to survive this. I already kind of figured as much. I didn't expect the storyline to end. I mean, sure, eventually, but I didn't, like, as we got later in the season, sure, when we got up to the story beat last episode, but I never thought, like, I figured her dad wasn't going to make it in general for a while, but I just wasn't expecting this story beat to be how it all plays out. We also run into Sachimoto, who is, we hadn't seen him in a homicide. We also never saw Home Dude in the hospital again. I'm wondering, is there a reason for that? Like a real life reason for that? Like maybe just things, you know, that I don't want to get too more, but I don't know what the circumstance. Like, we saw Sachimoto one more time, so us not seeing him I thought was interesting. Especially with the reveal that we found out, like, oh yeah, like, Juntaek found his brother's severed head amongst the heads, so we know his brother's gone. But when it's all said and done, Sachimoto finds out, like, wait, Seishin's husband is here, and it's like, because for him it was the reality of, shit, he knows. Because He we ain't seen him in a couple episodes. The last time we saw him was after he had lied to Cheok about her mom. Like, he knew exactly what her circumstances were, but he thought it'd be easier not to tell her the truth. So, but now it's like, now I think the reality sets in that he knew, and most likely it's like, oh, Cheok probably found out too. So he wanted to make it up for them. So during the explosion, he ended up finding them and ended up taking them out. And Django's like, no, you go. Like, I don't want your life to be in danger because you're helping us. But for him, it's like, I'm sorry. Like, what happened to your mom? What happened to so many people in particular? Because for him, it's like, I try to justify it for myself. I think in his head, like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm drawing these pictures. I'm not the one responsible. But for him, it's like, I do have a responsibility for what happened. Because at the end of the day, I'm just as guilty as an accomplice in all this by being a bystander. There's so many people that were bystanders in all of this. So I think that's what really, and he just apologizes to her, because I think it's also like, right, I didn't tell you the truth about your mom, but also, like, I sat on the sidelines with what happened to her, what happened to so many people I've seen firsthand for all my drawings and stuff. So I was kind of hoping he was going to be able to give her one of the, because he had a picture of her mom that he drew, but I don't know if she kept the one that she had previously. I don't know if she still had that one regardless, but Jang and Cheok were able to get away, but we also find out they're not the only ones, because Cheok's mom ended up escaping the beach. I was like, damn, which sucks, because you're almost like, her dad died for nothing. He didn't even take the monster with him. I was like, Jesus. And she's also, we didn't find out, I didn't notice it at least until she was in the streets of Gyeongseong, that I noticed, like, oh, she's missing an arm. Have a strong healing factor, but I guess if any limbs get dismembered, they can't grow them back. It's not that level of regeneration. They can recover from cuts and gunshots, but not like so like, I guess if you manage to sever her head, she would potentially, or maybe to be fair, the arm wasn't just severed, it was blown up. So maybe that's the differentiation there. Like, maybe if the arm is nearby, maybe she would be able to reconnect it. I don't know. Because that does make me wonder how Myungja died. But part of me wonders, is it because she was pregnant at the time, it took control of her, but the moment, like, maybe the reason why she was feeling the way she was is because the Najin went from her into her baby. To be fair, like, the baby's feeding off of nutrients from the mom, so either they shared that or it left her, because, like, we see her kind of dead. Once again, she hasn't full transformed, but she still is enough where she has regenerative properties, but even that has its limitations. I mean, she got shot a ton and she was still alive, so that's why I'm wondering, why did that process of him taking the baby kill her? I mean, she looked dead. She didn't look like she was still breathing. Like, she wasn't saying anything. It looked like she probably died from blood loss, or just like having a baby cut out of her. But I'm assuming, like, the Najin had already gone to the baby, and so now that was the case, she was pretty much human again. But it could also be an indicator of what happens later on, that maybe it's like, if the Najin manages to leave you, then you automatically die, because it's the only thing keeping you alive. Basically, you're a walking corpse with the Najin inside of you. You'll still have some conscious awareness, but obviously that gets eroded over time. But maybe it's indicating, like, either it's losing the Najin and succumbing to your wounds, or just losing the Najin is enough to, like, kill you. That's still up in the air. Like, even the ending doesn't fully answer that, because that's all, we'll get to it when we get to it. But that's why I'm correlating those two things of, like, we see with the baby does have something crawling underneath its skin, and we see its eye is kind of a little different, so it definitely has a Najin in it. But did a Najin, like, replicate inside of itself, inside of Myungja, and ends up passing on to the baby, or is it specifically the one that she had ingested immediately went to the baby? Maybe it was always in the baby and she was just getting the after effects of it. It most likely did go to her and then transfer to the baby, or what. I don't know at what point like I said, there's still so many questions on that part. It could go either way with that. They're gathering back at Golden Treasure. They got a letter from Jang, and they're like, right, they're gathering up all the money and stuff that he's going to need, because he's planning on leaving with Cheok. And she's telling him later on, like, no, which just ended here. I'm always going to be on the run for the rest of my life, most likely. Either they'll catch me or they'll kill me. That's the life I'm going to live, and you don't have to get dragged down with me. But for him, it's like, I made a promise to your dad. Your dad gave me a second chance in life because basically your dad gave me a bonus life because, once again, he kind of went into that building with the intention of dying, like so that Cheok and her dad could be free. But it's like, right, your dad made me promise, and he wanted to keep that promise. But also, it's like, he's like, you don't like me? She's like, you know what I mean. And it's just like, right, let's go together. He doesn't want to leave her side, and I think she only wants to leave his side because I think it's just she's scared because everyone around her is dying. Like, she's lost her dad, she's lost her mom, and it's just like, I think she's scared of, for one, like, eventually you'll be someone else that I lose because of all of this, so. But Bimyo is the one that's kind of ordered to kind of take the stuff to Jang and Cheok. When it's all said and done, there were people nearby watching, and I'm like, it's got to be Maeda's people. The same people that we saw grab Cheok, and it turns out it is. It's kind of our own little shadowy squad. Once again, back to that conversation from Mori about there being an invisible hand. Obviously, it's Maeda, but I don't know if it's like, does she belong? Like, is it specifically her family lineage that like has some like they're like powerful enough? Like, I don't know if it's like a Japanese Illuminati type of family thing of like they're powerful enough they pull the strings behind the scenes, or like did she hire these people? Because they focus on those tattoos, interestingly enough, to kind of showcase, I guess there's something significant about this group or something. I don't know. But Bimyo like knew that he was being followed. Well, it took him a while, but he knew he was being followed, and he thought he got away from him until like another car showed up. So it's like, damn. And so it turns out not even just the people showed up, so did Maeda. And so you're like, wow. Because we still never got an answer about what her beef is with Cheok and specifically her mom. She does say this line later on about like, and it potentially answers more about the whole her and Jang of it all, because I kept being like, I flip-flopped so much because I was unsure, because I was like, no, Jang was like, nothing ever happened between them. But then like the way Maeda was acting about him, I was like, oh, was there something actually going between you? And she keeps referring to him as a friend. I don't know if it's like a translation thing of like, if you friend, it's like very loosely, like they say it like there's no quotes around it in the subtitles, but I'm wondering, is like the implication supposed to be there's quotes around it, or is it just like no, they straight up had a very platonic relationship? Because obviously Ishikawa found comfort outside of their marriage with Myungja, so it's like maybe she did too, but maybe it wasn't even in a sexual or romantic sense. Maybe it legitimately was a friendship, because she probably didn't really have many friends. Like, I mean, in the confines of the show, in the confines of the time frame and stuff and what the story is, there's no time for real friendship, but we've never seen any actual connections that she has. You just see the people that she who serve her, the people she uses and to get what she wants. That's all we see. At least Jang, we see like the network of people he works with and the connections he has, but for her it's just, I don't know. Like I said, like last episode, she was there standing all alone. At least Jang still had his family. He went inside with Gapyeong and Mr. Wall, so. But yeah, she specifically says, you were my friend. I guess I'm going to lose a friend today. And it's like the reason why, because she had brought it up in that little conversation she had after she got Cheok last episode was, right, it's funny how destiny kind of works, fate works, that I be intertwined, connected to your mom, you and me, we're all connected, funny enough. And the line she says specifically is, I had a friend and I lost her because of her mom. Now, we had seen, like I said, there was a picture she was focusing on, and it's like, oh. So I don't know if, I at the time was like, is that supposed to be Cheok's mom? So I was like, was she like her teacher or something? Or did she, like, so is that what she means when she lost a friend of like, oh, you betrayed me in some way, so that's why you were at the hospital? Or did one of my friends die because of you? We still don't know what that was about. Just specifically that line, that phrase of, I lost a friend because of her mom. So it could have been like my friend was your mom, but your mom betrayed me. So just like it feels like it's more so that just because of the Jang parallels of, hey, we were friends and now you've betrayed me, so you're as good as dead to me. So it feels like it's more like that, because the only thing we saw was that photo she was looking at, and at one point she's in one of those carts and she drives by Cheok's mom, and Cheok's mom kind of looks at her like there was some familiarity there. So we still walked away not knowing the answers to it, but Maeda leaves and it's like, right, you guys take care of this, and leaves her goons to hit. But Jang and Cheok aren't going down without a fight. They're doing their thing, but they're outnumbered. Like, you know, he has a gun, but it's a pistol, only so many bullets. She's only got a knife, but as we learned pretty early on, I mean, Jang can hold his own in a scrap too, but obviously she's the more skilled fighter. I mean, she just got a knife, but she's agile, she's quick, and she's slicing up dudes, but it's not enough. But luckily, lo and behold, who shows up? Mama Bear, and she rips through those guys. One guy in particular got stomped. The last guy, she like grabbed and slammed him into that pillar. But yeah, Jang is trying to protect Cheok because she got sliced up pretty bad. He did too, but in that moment, like her mom's about to attack, and then Cheok gets away. I was like, no shot. I was like, oh god, of course. God, I was scared. I was on pins and needles. I was like, there's so much time left for things to go bad, and of course they did. And for her, it's just like, Mom, stop. I know you're in pain too, but this is the man I love. So please, let's end this here. And she just dies in his arms. Like, you know, it's just like he was like, come on, just get up. You're gonna be okay. And for her, it's just like the cherry blossoms have all fallen. You know, it's like that. The cherry blossoms are. It is sad because it's like. Because she had noticed that, like, maybe episode... Now, I think that was the last episode she had really taken notice of that. Maybe it was episode 8. It might have been one of the two. She had taken notice of that. Like, oh, all the cherry blossoms are officially gone now. No, I think it was specifically... Well, because they were still falling at the end of episode 7. So, like, but they were completely going, like, episode 8 or 9. And I think it was supposed to be symbolic of the cherry blossoms are what connected them, because that's when the job needed to be done before Ishikawa brought down his reign of terror on Jang and everybody at Golden Treasure. And I didn't think about this until like a little bit after the fact, but I'm like, was foreshadowed she'd kind of die similarly to this, because if you remember at the beginning of episode 8, she had a nightmare that Jang turned into a monster and ended up killing her, kind of very much in a similar way. Except she got like hit by multiple tendrils. This time it was by one, but it's like, right, she died by a tendril, but it was in the process of protecting Jang. So the dream was a little foreshadowing a bit in that regard, but it sucks. Like, you could tell, like, it devastates her mom because she didn't mean to do that. Like, she was so lost in she's just trying to protect her daughter. She doesn't know Jang, and just in that moment, she was just kind of like in a very adrenaline-filled mode, and ended up killing him. I mean, ended up killing her own daughter after everything. After everything, you're just like, damn, and where do we go from here? And just seeing transitions away from them, I'm like, what's going to happen? Like, what do you do with that situation? Does, like, Cheok's mom just, like, run away? Like, what's going to happen there? And so I was like, wow, he's going to get his get back against Maeda. And he does. Jun Taek shows up at Ishikawa's funeral where Maeda is, and it's like, oh, here's a letter from a friend. She's like, your friend? He's like, yeah. Jang Taesung, and she's almost like, wait, what? Because she didn't expect him to be alive. So it's like, I'm assuming it's either the next day or maybe it's been a couple of days. But she opens up the letter and it says farewell, and she looks around, and in the very back she sees Gapyeong as he's like leaving. I was like, oh, it feels poetic for him to be the one that kind of see you. And then she starts reading all the signs. All the signs are the names of people who are victims of her BS. Like, one of them ended up being was it Young Guan? He's the medical student soldier that died a couple of, what was that, episode? I think that was episode 7. It was his name, as well as Cheok's name, her mom's name, her dad's name, just kind of making this point of all the, like, these are all people who are victims of your bullshit. This was all your situation. And she starts panicking a little bit. I was like, go ahead, try and go to the door. Please tell me the door is locked. Didn't even make it to the door because by the time she started leaving, the bombs already went off. But as we find out later on, she's still alive. I'm like, Jesus, can no one shitty stay dead? The only person that's shitty that died and has stayed dead because he got a bullet to the head was Ichiro, because Kato is still alive. Last time we checked, Tanedo was still alive. Ishikawa was dead, so, but that's only because his probably more evil wife ended up, wanted him dead, so. But yeah, like, that was a strategic point for, like, the resistance group, because a lot of high-ranking officials, Japanese officials, were going to be there. So it wasn't just about taking out Maeda. It was also it worked out to his favor because Jang could also get his revenge. But it was also about, like, making a strategic strike against, like, any high-ranking Japanese people, because once again, like, there was supposed to be another gathering, but Ishikawa's funeral kind of took precedence over that, so they had to shift over. It was just a win-win across the board. Once again, sadly, Maeda is still alive, and we had that moment where Kato was like, right, I'm going to go back to Japan. We're kind of being ordered to go back. Now the question is, you could go back to Kyoto, or you can, like, enjoy, like, a new possibility. And he's smiling. I was like, you son of a bitch. And we don't really see it, but it's a clear bowl cup, and you're like, he does have at least 2 Najins left. Those 2 or 3. I want to say there's only 2 left, but he potentially probably gave her one. So, because she's in a somewhat catatonic state, but it's also very poetic that it's like her face is kind of burned now, because it's like, right, you're kind of like, it kind of reflects like your ugliness on the inside. It's kind of reflected on the outside now, but she does look at that. So I don't know if she knows a Najin's in there, or she expects it to be. Maybe she even sees it swimming around. I don't know. We do know it has, to be fair, it's also, she's aware of the Najin's healing properties. Granted, you'll become a monster. Granted, you also need the serums for that. But if you just have the Najin, you kind of get a little controlled by it, sure, but you get the healing properties. So she's probably, because this ends up leading to many other questions too, which also ties into the end of, okay, so if you get it, whatever wounds you have, if even if they're old wounds, they will automatically start healing. So even though she's probably had these burns for like a couple days, maybe even longer, maybe they'll automatically heal, or maybe she'll think they will, but maybe they won't. We don't really. That's the thing of, like, it implies, the ending implies, like, no matter how long after the fact, the healing properties can kick in some capacity, so maybe those wounds will heal. I mean, because she's sitting in that kind of what seems like a wheelchair, so she might be, like, badly burned on her. It might not just be her face, like her entire body could be so badly burned that she can't actually walk, or maybe the impact from the explosion did a number on her spine or something. I don't know. That could just be like a natural recovery, like, type of situation, or you're just naturally going to sit there. It doesn't necessarily fully reflect the conditions of her recovery and stuff. But either way, Jang is sitting down with Juntae, who's like happy about what they were able to accomplish. It's like, oh, you're a real patriot, you're a real hero. He's not really in a celebratory mood, considering like what was cost at the end of it all. But when it's all said and done, like the other members come to him like, oh, you're comrade, Jang. But he's like, no, I'm not comrade Jang. I'm just Jang of Golden Treasure. It's like, right, I did this, I was a part of this, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not like an official part of this cause. Like, if you ever need anything, yes, come to me as Jang of Golden Treasure. That's who I am. And come across some people, bowing his head to other people, some of his associates, and he makes his way back to Golden Treasure, and he hears the bike, and he thinks like maybe it's her, and it's beautiful, symbolic of like coming full circle of episode 8, where Jaeok was out front waiting for him every day for those 4 days, hoping he'd come back, and he was kind of sitting there hoping the same, like, hopeful that, one day that dream of his might come true, being with the person he loved, and she wanted to be with the person she loved, and it came down to this, and like I said, just some interesting loose threads left open, and then we get our ending where, well, because he ends up talking about it, because I had said this at the time, I was curious how this was all going to play out too, because the Korea's independence, like getting from underneath Japan, happens in a couple months. Like, once again, I don't know if it's maybe like April-ish or even May. I don't know, because like spring was over, so, but I don't know, like, like the cutoff point specifically in Korea, like when they would consider that stuff. But a couple months later, basically in August, they would end up getting their independence. Like I said, like Korea got from underneath Japan like August 15th, because that was like a couple days after like the second. I'm already forgetting the dates. When it like the 6th and the 9th, if I remember correctly. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed like a couple days prior to Korea's like getting from underneath Japan. So he kind of references that a little bit, and we would hear, like, it cuts to black and you hear hooray for like Korea's independence. So it is, all of this was kind of a prelude to that. Like, obviously it's like this obviously big but also small story taking place, like I said, with all of this being the backdrop of it, telling this very personal story in a lot of regards. Like I said, it's a small story, but it's also a big story in a lot of ways because of that. But the other ending I was talking about was what we saw with, I don't know if that was something that Cheok's mom did on her own, like, because the whole ending of like, okay, so her body falls in and so does her. So I doubt they did. Maybe Cheok's mom grabbed her body and took off with it, and so maybe Jang didn't really have much choice in that matter. I mean, he already knew she was gone. I don't know. Whatever, it's unclear, like, because it seems like that could also be metaphorical, but it does seem like it's also literal. So the question is, like, her body falls in the water and then her mom comes in afterwards, but obviously, like, in that moment, her mom kind of, we see her represented as her human form for a little bit as she's reaching out to her daughter. She's growing out the tendrils, kind of protecting her like she did a couple episodes back. And when it's all, I think that was episode 6. But then we see the Najin leave her and go into Cheok, and then her mom seems to die. That's what I was bringing up before. So was it because her mom had sustained all those wounds and couldn't fully heal from them anymore, despite her still going on? Or is it specifically because the Najin left her? Or was it a combination of, because the body, like I said, like, does the Najin just basically make you a walking corpse? Which we do see that Cheok wakes up. So it's like, and that's what I was talking about too with Maeda's situation of, well, this thing can heal you well after the fact. Like, she'd probably been dead for a while, but maybe it's because she was still relatively enough alive that the Najin passing on to her. I mean, why did it decide to do that? Was it driven by some instinct of, well, every creature has the instinct of, I want to survive, so, oh, here's another host, but you think it would go for a living host, but it can preoccupy a dead host. Maybe it's because she was only recently dead, so she was still warm enough to kind of register as alive. Or maybe on some level this creature was kind of driven by not only its own instinct to survive, but also, like, there's a little bit of Cheok's mom who did kind of a little bit of like a emotional push to like make it so her daughter could survive, Unclear. Probably would never get an answer for that, just because it is what it is. But she is alive, granted. You can still hold on to your humanity. She would never go full monster as long as you can hold on to your humanity. We saw Myungja kind of do it. Even then, that was like, it didn't take long before it fully like kicked in. Because that was like probably hours after she had ingested it. They had gotten out like hours after she had probably ingested it, so it didn't take too long for it to kind of kick in. Like I said, you won't turn into that monstrous form without the anthrax serum that Kato had created. So she's still alive, and then we kind of get some of the real world stuff of what happened, for Korea and like the end of the war and stuff, and then ultimately we zoom out and was like, what? Because I was curious about what the show potentially could do going forward. I was like, you don't think that you would? And it's like a TV and parts of it in color. I was like, wait, would they even have? I mean, yeah, but I mean, I don't know what Korea's situation would have been on in that front. I know, like, here in the States, like, we would have had. That's what I was like, that's interesting. And then we zoom out. I was like, is this going to be the future, like present day? And then the guy opens up the window and it modern-ish, because I don't know, like, I was almost feeling like this seems like it could also be the 80s, because that looked like it was like a CRTV, so I was like, it could be like the 80s, or maybe it is like present day. It just felt too small of a TV to be present day, so I feel like it's probably is like the 80s or something. But I was like, wait, what? And then the guy's like, his name was called out, it was like Hojie or something, and he turns around and it's the actor who plays Zhang. So I was like, okay. Because we also don't know how long people who are infected with the Najin lives. So I'm like, okay, so is he going to meet... Okay, so if we're setting this story present day, or at least further in the future, let's say it's the 80s at most. Cause I was curious if we're going to kind of do that. Like, once again, if you've ever seen the series Bugaso Immortal Souls, it's kind of like about reincarnation, about like lives over the course of like hundreds and hundreds of years, and then like the story mainly takes place present day and flashes back to the past. I was curious if it's going to be something like that, where I'm like, okay, so going forward, the story, is it still going to be set in the 40s? Will we still be in the aftermath of that? Like I said, but what if it is taking place in the 80s? What if Cheok is still alive after all this time? Like, did she gain a little bit of immortality because of the healing rate, so it's kept her alive all this time type of situation? It's like, what does that say about the baby that Kato took back to Japan? Like, eventually, like that, like, I'm sure his research kept going. Like, it'd be interesting if somewhere along the way he actually became a decent enough father to that child and actually eventually regretted what he did, because like both the dad Ishikawa and the mom Myungja are dead, kind of as a byproduct of him, because I mean this all stems from him. This is all, everything that happened, it's 100% his fault. So I'm curious to see what that would be. Like I said, Maeda, like what her circumstances are. There's just so many ways you're like, what this story could be going forward. I brought it up in the previous in the previous review. If you look on IMDb, it already has a page for season 2, but I looked it up. What I saw was something saying, like, this is from, like, apparently 2 days ago, because I'm recording this Sunday. This is going to be going up later today, in a couple hours, but the thing I saw was, like, from 2 days ago saying, like, I think in Korea, it hasn't done the best. It's kind of, the words that we use were, it's kind of got a lukewarm response in Korea, but internationally speaking, it's done decently well, I think, probably like numbers and ratings wise. So, I mean, there's room for a season 2, obviously, but I don't think Netflix or anyone has said anything officially. It seems like this is like a Netflix thing, not like Netflix licensing something. It does seem like this is something they own the licensing for, not like they're licensing it from someone else. So, I mean, once again, at the end of the day, it does come down, it is their decision on whether or not this gets renewed or not. But I hope it does. I'd be curious to see where the story goes. Once again, it's Sunday at the time I'm recording this. Like I said, this will be going up today as well. But it's only been 2 days since the back half. So for a lot of people, they'll probably watch the entire thing at once, rather than, they were like, oh, I'll just wait for the whole thing to come out, rather than watch the first 7 episodes and then watch the last 3. We'll see how it all shapes out. But I would love to see a season 2 and figure out, where do we go from here? Like, is it that thing that Cheok and Jane kind of meet years apart? Like I said, like, if you've seen Bugaso Immortal Souls, kind of something in that vein, or what? Like, you know, will we meet other characters we got to know, but like generations down the line? Like, will we meet a Miss Nawal, just not the one that we knew? Like, is it going to be kind of something similar? Like we'll see all these characters we got to know, just like different versions of them. Like, is he actually Jang's like descendant? Is that like his son or grandson or something? Just the fact is, it's the same actor, like, makes it seem like that might, like, maybe Jang eventually did get married and had a kid with someone. Maybe. I mean, there's still also, in the aftermath of what happened to Cheok, like, did she just disappear? Like, could she have actually been the person, the motorcycle he heard? Could that actually have been her? But maybe she didn't want to come to him because she knew, like, right, I know what's happening to me right now, and he'll never be okay as long as I'm around him regardless, because they'll follow me to the ends of the earth. So I also know what's happening to me right now. I'm turning to a monster, so I don't want to be around him. So maybe she did already, like, maybe when he heard that motorcycle, that was her. Who knows? Like I said, there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but hopefully the show does get a second season, because I'd love to see where it would go from here. Especially because it's going to be interesting too, because it's like, I don't know when Gyeongseong officially became Seoul. It was officially in 45 when they got from underneath Japanese control, which makes a whole bunch of sense, because I think Gyeongseong was specifically a name that the Japanese had given it, maybe. maybe not. But either way, like that is when they established their independence from Japan. Is when they ended up changing the name officially to Seoul. So I was like, okay, because I was about to say, like, I mean, this would still be technical. Well, once again, it's just like the old name for Seoul. So it's just like keeping that name, and it's just like, because it is great. It all stems from Seoul's or Gyeongseong's history. So it makes sense. So it's just kind of interesting where it's just like, oh yeah, it's not technically Gyeongseong anymore. At that time when our story is taking place, it is still that. But once again, it's like if the story is like present day, but even if it's not, at very least, it seems like it might be like decades later, like the 80s or something. But yeah, like I said, I'd be so curious to see where season 2 would take us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.